Hi, it's Diamond with Diamonds, Diamond and Grace. Let's talk about it. I want to do a disclaimer today because I don't want anyone to be offended. This conversation is going to be raw and uncut. I want everyone to know the truth. I have Miss Whitney Trimmer with me today, and the topic is going to be growing up where everyone looks the same. Let's get into it, guys.
Glory and honor belongs to you, Lord. Heaven and earth shouts, holy is our God. You are my Father, you are my Savior.
Hi, guys. I want to welcome my guest to my show. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Whitney Trammell, and I'm so excited to talk about this conversation tonight.
Okay, guys, today's episode is going to be growing up where everyone looks the same. So, we're going to get in a couple of questions for Miss Whitney. Did you realize growing up that your town lacked diversity, or was it something you only noticed later in life?
So, that I think while I was in it, I didn't notice at the time, and looking back, I think I may have, but it wasn't like that. So growing up in a predominantly white town was like there was only maybe a couple mixed kids in my school that I went to. If we went to the grocery store, we never saw someone of a different race. So at the time, I thought it was normal. I didn't think it was unusual, and it wasn't until later in life when I moved away that I noticed that my town was like a little bubble.
Wow. How do you think growing up in your predominant white town shaped your world you as a child?
So, like I said, it felt like a bubble when I look back on it. When we would see people of a different race, it was almost like, what in the world is going on? Like, where are we at? Or, it was almost, it was uncomfortable. And
Wow.
so, um, I felt safe where I was at. And when I was put in those situations and exposed to people that looked different, it was really uncomfortable and scary sometimes.
Wow. So when you would see someone of a different color, it would be scary for you?
I think so because people in my hometown made it that way. And even in my own home growing up, it was made that something to be fearful of.
Oh, wow. Like, what were some of the things said about people of a different color?
So, for example, we would be out in a grocery store and say we're in line checking out to get our groceries. And, um, and like I said, this has something that happened in my own home. So I'd be with my grandfather a lot of times, and we would say we saw a black person, and he'd be like, "Oh, this," can I say,
You
he'd be like, "Oh, this effing N word," and he'd say it with the R, and it was really vile and mean. And he portrayed it like the way he would say it or talk about black people would be like that they're dirty or like you know what I mean, like someone to be afraid of, or like someone different, like we don't associate, we need to get out of here, we need to get out of the store.
Oh, wow. And like, how many years ago was that? Because I know from slavery and like my grandmother, she's of the age 80, they experienced that. And for me to hear you, I know you're younger than me, that still goes on in some homes.
It absolutely does. I think
Wow.
that was probably, I mean, this happened all throughout my childhood. So I moved out when I was 18. So I'm 24 now, so all of, like as long as I can remember, all the way up to 18, it happened, and I know it still happens there.
So let me ask you, now that you have kids, when you have a child, do you feel if your grandparents were still alive, if they are alive, would they try to project that on your child now?
I think they would try to. Well, I don't think they would try to project it, but I think they would unknowingly do it
Oh, wow.
because that's their behavior hasn't changed, and they're lovely people. So I'm not talking bad about them, but that's the way that everyone there is. Mostly everyone there, and I know in my childhood home. So I think um, it would be projected onto her.
So when you go back home to visit, is it still like that? Like still predominantly a white town?
It is. So there are Hispanics there, but there is really no black people there.
Oh wow.
And so, and this wasn't like a thing that happened every day because, like I said, you'd only see a black person once in a blue moon, maybe every 6 months, maybe once a year. It didn't happen very often, but when it did, it was
Uncomfortable.
it was well, it was I felt uncomfortable more about the way I didn't feel uncomfortable when I saw a black person. When I felt uncomfortable is when my grandfather or someone else in the store would start saying these slurs, racial slurs, or talking about them where they can obviously hear them.
Oh wow. What were some of the stereotypes or misconceptions you might have had about people from different racial backgrounds, and how did you unlearn them?
I love that question. So, um, like I said, that black people were scary or someone to be afraid of, um, dirty, even gross. They lived like animals, and that's things I heard that black people live like animals, and they're ghetto and scary, and don't associate with them. And when you're told that and you don't have anything to compare it to, you believe it. And as a child, especially, you're like a sponge. You just believe. You don't have any sense of reason as a child, so you believe that. And I unlearned that when I moved to college. I moved from my little town to Brunswick, Georgia, and I was exposed to people of different races. And I think that I was really uncomfortable, but it started to expose me to different races. And then I moved to Dublin, where I met you and your family, and that was life changing for me because I learned that you obviously don't live like animals, and there's nothing different. You're very family oriented, and you treat my child like it's your own child.
Right.
And you have welcomed us, and it's not anything that is noticeably different from how I live.
Okay. Did you ever feel like you were living in a bubble? If so, how did that affect the understanding of the world outside of your own town?
So I think I didn't have an understanding of the rest of the world at all. And I didn't know that at the time, but living in a town where everyone looks like me, you don't know that other places aren't like that when you never go outside of your town.
Okay. You went into detail a little. So I do want to say that my mom owns a daycare, and this is how I became to know Miss Trimble. Her daughter goes to my mother's daycare, and I instantly fell in love with Nellie Kate as a baby. And I never said this before, but I always felt like there was gonna be some type of connection. I don't know if I was gonna ask you if I could be like her godmother or anything, but my daughter and you became friends first,
Yes.
and now obviously you and I are friends. So I just feel like all of this was orchestrated, and like God put us together, and we do like you're like family to us. You come over, you stay the night, we come around you, like we welcome each other, and it's I don't see color at all. You're like my sisters to me, and Natalie Kate is like my niece, and I love you guys, and I enjoy being around you.
And I enjoy y'all just as much. And I was going to say, Milan, your daughter, has become like a sister to me. And we spend time together and have a good time just like me and my own sister do. And you treat NK like she is your niece, and even your mother treats her like a grandchild. And so, and when I come around, I feel safe and welcomed, and it's just like family.
Right. How would you want your own child to experience diversity differently from how you did?
So, what I love about Dublin and your mother's daycare here is that NK is exposed to people that don't look like her, and she's not in the bubble that I was. I think that's crucial for all children. Environment that's diverse. I think it builds critical thinking, and for her to be comfortable and competent when she goes off into the real world. And I did not have that luxury. So I think it's very important.
Great answer. What's one thing you'd like viewers to take away from your experience and this conversation?
I would love everyone to just listen and have an open mind and realize that even if you didn't grow up in a town like I did, that it really does happen and that this is a thing that happens. And just have an open mind and be kind.
I enjoyed you on tonight's episode. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.